Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Sales Mama podcast. Today, I want to talk about how to close your sales calls without feeling like you have to convince somebody. We really want to focus in on clarity because you are a problem solver. That is where we go from, hey, you need this, to, is this going to work for you or not? Let's see if it does and go from there. And some people, they're not losing sales because the offer is wrong, although sometimes that is the thing. We're not giving the people what they want. Most of the time, though, people are losing sales because they're trying to convince somebody who is still like in decision mode. They maybe don't have enough information. They're saying, time, money, energy, spouse, all of those things. And so I want you to stop because it's not your job to convince them that they need anything. Your job is to give them clarity around the product or service and see if it is a fit for them. So again, think service over selling, right? So I want to show you exactly what it looks like. So the first thing I want to talk about is convincing versus clarifying. Okay. I can always tell when somebody is convincing or selling on a sales call because they are talking more than the lead, more than the prospect. All right. So if we're reviewing a sales call and you're talking more than 25 or 30% of the time, you are convincing. You are trying to convince them that this thing is for them. That also comes with a lack of confidence. We feel like we have to over explain or give this many details because if we don't, the person isn't going to make a decision. So we have to convince them that this is the right thing. Whereas clarifying is asking really strategic questions and getting to the root of what their problem is, and then asking deeper questions. Why is that? Why do you feel that way? Where does that come from? So you can ask more specific questions and get even more out of their answers, which allows them to think more clearly about the product or service and see if it is a right fit for them. But the moment that you start yapping your mouth and defending why this is the best or why you are the best or why it's this price or why they should do this, you're convincing and you've totally lost the frame of the call. Okay. And so there's some stats from places like Salesforce where it says 70 to 75% of people who say like, I need to think about it. A lot of times those calls are lost because the seller, you, the salesperson, kept pushing and pushing and pushing in a convincing way, not asking clarifying questions. And so this is where you can go wrong on your sales calls, where if somebody's like, I need to think about it. And you're like, oh, well, you don't need to think about it. What if you did this? Or what if you did that? And you start to push instead of removing the pressure and saying something like, I totally understand that. I have to think about big decisions too, just so I'm clear on moving forward. And so I know what we need to talk about for the next time and make sure that you have all the resources that you need to make a clear decision. What specifically do you need to think about? Okay. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can ask that, but we can ask, is it the money? Is it that you don't know that this will work for you? Do you need to blah, 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 blah? Okay. And so the I need to think about it is not a true objection. Okay. That is a smokescreen. That is a way to get you off the phone so that they can then go do their processing. But the only answers that they're going to really get are going to come from you and you guys talking because you're the person with the answers, right? So what do they need to think about? What can I provide you to make this decision easier for you? And then if anybody does not move forward on a call, you need to book a meeting from a meeting. And I know you've heard this. This has been around for ages since I was back in selling insurance. And so you always want to have clear steps at the end of any call. When are you going to follow up? What are the next plan? Get something on the schedule. The absolute worst thing that you could do is, great, think it over. I'm going to send you some information. Get back to me when you can. When you can will likely be never. There will be those handful of people that they absolutely will get back to you and they will move forward. But that is a rare gem. That is a rare person. Typically, that does not happen. I need to think about it and I'll get back to you. Those are just a ways of telling you no nicely. The second thing that I want to talk about is when a prospect or a lead goes cold. The first thing that we think about is, oh, it's my offer. Maybe it's not about your offer. People, if your offer actually solves somebody's problem and the problem that they are asking or that they are having, then maybe it's not the offer. Maybe it's about fear. A lot of times when I work with people, if they're not at a level to invest, or if they haven't taken the prerequisites to be in that position, a lot of times there's fear that comes up. I gave a really good example of this yesterday where, say you're making $10,000 a month and you come to me and I'm like, I will, guarantee that you will make $500,000 by the end of the week, right? That is too far of a gap. So they don't necessarily believe that it's going to happen for them, right? So we have to make sure that they believe that you can help them and that they believe that it's possible. Or if I'm like, I'm going to help make you $1,000,000 tomorrow, but you have never made a dollar, that's too big of a gap. Nobody's going to believe you, and it's probably not possible. But if you are somebody who has already made 900,000 this month, and I say, I'm going to make you $1,000,000 by tomorrow, that's a lot more plausible. That's a lot more likely. Is your product or solution, is the gap between where they are and what the product is that too far of a gap? And if it is, this is where we can start to downsell, right? Where it's like, okay, if this is too much, if that's too big of a stretch, what do we have in between? And that a lot of times is where like group programs come in, DIY things, guides, workshops, things like that. So it's not always the offer per se, it's the fear of, can I actually do this? Is this too far from where I'm at? Do I actually see myself being able to make this happen? Okay. And a lot of coaches, they like speed up here where they're like, oh, I just want people in my high ticket. I just want people in my high ticket. High ticket's not going to be for everybody. And so you need to have places to put those people. This is where we have our groups and our DIYs, our downsells. Okay. And so instead of like push, hey, if we were able to solve this first problem, then maybe we can go up to this next problem. All right. So I want you to slow down and ask one question. Okay. What would need to be true for this to be a clear, easy yes for you? Okay. And so they may have their own things that they need to work through. It's similar with the scale of education, right? Like if somebody's only ever completed elementary and you're selling a college level course, they need to then go through middle school and high school in order to be ready for that college level course. Okay. So do you have a product or service that would fit her in that middle school or high school range? And what needs to be true to make that an easy yes for her? Does she need to get her finances in order? Does she need to talk to somebody about it? Like what needs to be true? Or is she just standing in her own way and she knows she needs to do this, but she's scared of becoming the woman that completes these things, right? Because a lot of times when you up level your life or your business, your circle changes and you outgrow people. And that can be really scary for some, especially if they've been in the same circle for so long. All right. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is objections. First thing I want to say is objections are not rejections. It typically has nothing to do with you as a person. And the more you can embrace that and embody that, the less you will take the no's personally. I remember when I first got started in sales and I would hear the word no and I'm like, why? Like in my brain, I'm like, why? Why would you say no to me? Like, what did I do wrong? Like, how can I be better? And I just internalized everything. But the no says more about them than it says about you. Okay. And I typically try to get to 2 or 3 no's before it's a true no. Okay. Everybody's brain is wired to default to the negative. Okay. And this goes for sales as well. So if you know you're trying to be sold to, or if somebody's trying to solve your problems, for me, I'm like, nope, I'll figure it out myself. Nope, I'm going to do it on my own. Nope, I'll decide when I'm ready. Even if it is the perfect product or service for me, I will say no because that's my default. It's like my brain is like, nope, I'm not going to be sold. Nope, I don't need this. Nope. But that's not true. That's me putting up a defense mechanism. Okay. So just know that by when she says no, you're actually going to help her decide what her next step is. Okay. So what's beyond that no? No, I need to think about it. Typically means that they don't think it's going to work for them or they don't feel safe in this environment yet. Okay. Or no, you know what? It's too much money. They do not see the value. They do not see the return on the investment And that could be a them thing, right? Where it's like, I don't want to spend this money because I know I'm not going to follow through with this. How many people have experienced that? I know I have, where they're like, oh, it's too much money. And I'm like, compared to what? Compared to what? Or it's too much money. Are you telling me that you just don't have any money, or you've never spent this type of money on this? And then there has been those people that I've worked with that have spent 5, 10, 15, $20,000 or more on working with somebody. And it wasn't that it was too much money because they had the money. It was that they didn't follow through with the things, so they didn't get the return on their investment. So does that say anything about you, or does that say something about them? Okay. So we always want to dive deeper. So if somebody says, it's too much money, or I don't have that type of money, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, is it that you have $0 in your bank account, or that you just haven't spent the money on this before? Or is it that you've spent the money and you're not sure if this is actually going to work for you? Okay. You can go so many different directions with that. And then the one that we hear, I don't hear it as often because I don't really struggle with this one, but a lot of my clients hear this all the time. Let me talk to my husband. I have to talk to my husband. I have to talk to my partner. I have to talk to my spouse. I have to talk to so-and-so person. And really what that is saying is that they need somebody to give them permission to say yes to themselves. Okay. And so how I really navigate this is, great. Totally feel ya. A lot of people need to talk to their spouse or their partner when they're making big decisions. Tell me, what exactly is it that you are going to talk with him about, right? Or if the roles were reversed, what do you think he would do? Or what do you think he's going to say? Right. And so this is typically what I have done in this is I'll have somebody put down a deposit, and then I will invite their husband back to the call. Very rarely does anybody's husband actually get on the call. What ends up happening is they want to run it past them, and two things happen. Either we have the really supportive husbands that will say yes no matter what, or we have the husbands who have so little information because, right, this woman has been having this problem or this struggle for who knows how long. A lot of times it's been years. And then she goes to her husband, brain dumps years of research and things that she wants to try onto him in a 5-minute conversation to make a decision about a product or service that typically is thousands of dollars. Like, what do you think he's going to say? Again, people default to the negative. If you don't have a lot of information, you're obviously going to say no. I would say no if my husband's like, oh, I'm going to go do this, this, and this, and it's $1 million. I'd be like, wait, what? I didn't even know that you had a problem with this. You know what I mean? Not that I would ever really do that. I'm pretty supportive. Like, anytime my husband asks me for things, I'm like, why do you even ask me? Like, I'm always going to say yes. Like, I want you to do more things. Like, I love spending money. So that's me. And then when I do stuff, I tell my husband after the fact. I'm like, oh, by the way, I signed up for this thing. So that's really how we communicate, but it works for us. So I trust him to make good decisions, and he trusts that I'll spend all the money. But here's another statistic for you, because what happens is, this is what Salesforce came up with. They, I don't know if you know what Salesforce is. It's a full functioning CRM. It is a beast, and it's typically too robust for most small businesses, but they have a lot of really great stats and data that can help small businesses. So for example, 44% of salespeople or business owners who are selling their own services give up after one objection. After one. And I even pulled this in my Sales Mama school, and they usually give up after 1 to 3 touch points. And it's like, guys, 80% of sales require half a dozen or more follow-ups. Okay? Think about that. 80% of the sales that you are making require 5 or more touch points. And this can be email, this can be text message, this can be phone calls, this can be but it's that personal connection. So 5 or more, 6 or more. I mean, there's been times where I've talked to people 8 or 10 times and then they make a decision, right? And so the squeaky wheel is the one that gets fixed, or the squeaky mouse is the one that gets the cheese, or whatever the thing is. And so be persistent, be consistent, but don't be irritating about it, okay? It's very much a value-based check-in. It is not like, hey, just making sure you want to buy that product or service. No, it's, hey, I've been thinking about you. I have this free resource for you. Where are you at with moving forward with XYZ product or service? Make it value-based. Or, hey, I heard this podcast episode and it made me think of you. I wanted you to listen to it. And it could be something that helps overcome the objection that they had. All right. Value-based follow-ups. I have 2 more things that I want to talk about, and then we will be done with this episode. So the next thing I want to talk about is the energy shift. Okay. If you are somebody who is desperate for sales, if you need the sale, they will feel it, and you will push put so much resistance in that process that they will typically go somewhere else. Okay. So I like to relate this back to horses or asking our husband to take out the trash, right? It's like the more you push on something, the more I need this to happen, the more I need this to happen, the more I need this to happen, the more the other person is like, peace out. No, you don't. And so they leave, right? Or this is where horses blow up because it's like, I need you to listen. I need you to listen. I need you to listen. And they're like, explode, right? Or husband, take out the trash. 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 I really need you to take out the trash. And then all of a sudden he's like, or he just doesn't do it. And you end up having to do it yourself. Okay. You are not here to get her to buy. You are helping her figure out what she needs. Okay. You are servicing her. You are asking her questions. You do not need anybody to do anything. You want them to. And as soon as you shift that energy to I have to, from I have to I get to, the whole energy shifts, right? And even like leaning back. I think a lot of times they'll start to get anxious and they'll lean forward and they'll lean forward and they'll lean forward some more. And it's like, no, lean back, like give them some space. Okay. I'm here to help. I'm not here to smother you. Okay. And here's another statistic for you. It's 78% of buyers choose to do something based on whether or not they trust that person before they consider price. Do I trust that you will help me get the result that I am after? And typically people will pay whatever the price is if they know that you can help them. So think about trust before you think about price. Think about trust before you think about convincing somebody to do something. Do you believe that you can help them? And if you know within all your hearts of hearts that you can help, you need to share that. And so this is where I get very assertive, or I have a lot of conviction and I have a lot of confidence, because if there's somebody that I know I can help, I will say that. I'll be like, I know I can help you. I know that I can do this, this, and this. And if you do this, this, and this, we will hit your goal, right? And so the more confidence and conviction that you can have, and the more that you trust within your own skills and abilities, they will trust in your skills and abilities. And a lot of times the price is just a thing that you guys need to work out. Okay. And so the last thing that I want to talk about is how a clarity call can close itself. Okay. The setup is everything here. And so we need to make sure that we are setting expectations, proper expectations for this person. Everybody loves clear expectations, right? So the person needs to know exactly what the call is, who it's for. Is she already partially sold before showing up? Does she know that she has a problem and that you have a product or service that will help? And then you're asking pre-qualifying questions to, like, on a scale from 1 to 10, how big of a problem is this for you? On a scale from 1 to 10, like, how much is this affecting your daily life? How ready are you to solve this problem? What else have you already tried to solve this problem? What worked? What didn't work? What is it that you're looking for? Blah, 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 blah. There's so many ways that you can go with this. And then when you go into the call, you are now the doctor. You are the professional. You are diagnosing whatever problem she is having. And you're not necessarily in pitching mode. You're in problem solving mode. And you're like, okay, yep, I can help with that. Yep, I can help with that. Yep, if you're experiencing that, I can help with that. And so again, she needs to be talking majority of the time. You ask a question, you let them talk. Okay. And so the rule here is that you need to be listening 70% of the time and talking 30% of the time. Kind of like what we were saying in the beginning. If I hop on a call and it's skewed and it's like 50-50, or maybe you're talking 60% of the time, you're no longer clarifying anything. You're no longer diagnosing anything. You are convincing because you won't stop talking. And so you need to talk less and listen more. Talk a lot less and listen a lot more. And when you get to the pitch, a lot of times people will talk for 5 or 10 minutes. Keep your pitch to 1 to 3 minutes. Tell what they need to know, and then ask if they have any questions. Okay. And then you can go into answering whatever questions they have. But a lot of times people will give far too much information and it will overwhelm the person to the point where they're like, this seems complicated and I'm not going to do it. Okay. So Then what you need to do on that call is end with a clear next step, not look things over and take your time and get back to me. It's, so how does this sound? Are you ready to move forward? Is this something that you think will solve your problems? Is this something that you think you want to work together on? Are you ready to get started? Anything that would then make the sale on that. What credit card do you want to use for this? Do you want to use bank transfer, or do you want to use a credit card or debit card? So make sure that you have a clear next step. And if they do need to, think about it or talk to somebody, remember, ask the reason why, dig deeper into it, see if you can provide any tools or resources to help make their decision easier. And then bam, book a meeting from a meeting. Okay, that way, and do it within 1 to 3 days. People start to cool off after 72 hours. And then that way, you have clear next steps and they have clear next steps. And if you want to run your calls like this, I have 2 ways that you can start doing calls like this. First is going to be Sales Mama School for the full experience, for the full container. It's a 6-month program. We will walk you through everything from attracting your right clients, converting your right clients, delivering high value content to those clients, and making them stick for a long time so that the lifetime value of that client is increased. And we talk about sales personalities and how you can show up as the confident, convicting individual that you could be and should be. And then if that is too big of a step, you can always start with my groundwork program. It's going to have everything that you need to get started, to lock in your sales scripts, to lock in your funnels, to lock in your follow-ups, overcome objections, literally everything that you could want. It is a business in a box, basically, and it's for you to get started on your own. So that is a DIY type of thing. Both are available at salesmama.biz. And if you would like to have a conversation about this, you can email me, you can click the link in the show notes, or you can send me a message on Instagram and we can talk about what next steps are best for you. All right. Thanks for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.